This is Dragon Ball Z Sagas on the PS2. This, I believe, is also on the GameCube and the original Xbox. Now, I've hardly played this. I mainly saw, my friends Jason and Philippe playing this. In fact, Philippe was the one who actually gave this game to me. And he didn't really think very highly of it. And, well, that's honestly the most experience I think I have of this game is watching them play it. I kind of fucked around in the single player a bit, and, I don't know what to say much else about this other than, hey, thanks for the game, Philippe. Another game that Philippe gave me, and is also pretty much the first game. Actually, it is the first game I got in 2018, not the first game I purchased. The first game I purchased was Soul Calibur Broken Destiny on the PSP this year. The first game I acquired this year was Nitro Bike on the PS2. A game that, boasts a lot on the back saying, oh, from the makers of Excitebike 64, which were Left Field Productions, comes Nitro Bike, a fast, awesome bike game with turbo or nitro, boosts and whatnot. I played a little bit of this, and it seems like it's competent, decent, for, especially its price and whatnot. The boosting mechanic is cool. But you really have, very little, if any, content at all from the start. And honestly, I haven't had the motivation or the patience to actually sit down and try and unlock the other courses yet. I kind of just fucked around with the 3 or 4 courses they give you. And a little bit in the multiplayer, because Philippe brought this over a couple times. But, who knows, maybe I'll sit down and play it some more. However, one that I might actually play some more would be the Wii version of Nitro Bike. Yes, I ended up also buying the Wii version, just kind of for, the memes, I guess. And hey, if we do a Watch Us Play on Nitro Bike, we would do this version because we can do 4 players. Yes, you can do 4 players on the PS2 one, but that requires the multi-tap, which I don't own. So, who knows, maybe for that reason alone, I'll actually have to play more of the Wii version than I would the PS2 version. Now, being that this is on the Wii, of course there's some motion controls, and from what I've played, it doesn't seem too hindering. Obviously they just added it for the sake of adding motion controls, when this could have easily also used the GameCube controller or the classic controller. But it's not also completely hindered like that, it's still somewhat playable, but again, the PS2 version's, I guess, better in that regard. But in any case, I guess I'll be revisiting this a little more. Here we have Surround on the Atari 2600. Now, of course, I don't really pick up much 2600 stuff, especially now. Like last year, I only bought 2 games, which were Dragster and Vanguard. I'm surprised I even got a game this fucking early. But yeah, Surround. This was one of the first games ever released for the 2600, like a launch title, 1977, so got a really fucking old game here, 41 years old. And I heard about it, seen it in action before, and it's, kind of similar to, Snake, although you're not really, collecting, pieces of a snake to make it bigger. You're trying to, trap the other player and whatnot. However, this is a 2-player only game, I'm sure. Even if it's not, I imagine it's a lot better to do in 2 players anyways. There's also, this, free mode where you can, draw and stuff. It seems, decently entertaining, but again, I haven't had the chance to actually play this with 2 players. But in any case, it's still cool to have, what the hell, spend, $2 or $3. Even with 2600 games being as cheap as they are, I'm not really, after them, but, whatever. This is still good to have. Okay, well, how about some Nintendo 64 stuff? Because as I've mentioned many, many times before, I think I'm probably going to go for all 388 Nintendo 64 games, which would of course include the Japanese stuff and the 4 PAL exclusive stuff. But let's start off with a Japanese game. This is Choro Q64-2 Hachamecha Grand Prix Race. Now, this was one of the last N64 games I think I ever heard of, because at this point I've heard of all 388 games, all of them. This was definitely, I think, one of the last ones. This series has been going on, this series where you race these little cars and whatnot, Choro Q / Penny Racers, has been going on since the MSX, I think in 1987. Now, the first one on the N64 was brought over here as Penny Racers, and I believe, on the Wii, there's a Penny Racers game that they actually called it Penny Racers, but they actually had a sequel to it released only in Japan. And the name is just kind of interesting because I never thought that an N64 game, a sequel to an N64 game at that, had the title 64-2, because, 642. So maybe somebody would get confused. Probably not, because there's enough games on the N64 that have 64 in the title. Around like 70 or so that have 64 in the title. Now, as for this game, well, I was watching, Adam Koralik, he visited Japan, and one thing he picked up a lot were N64 exclusives. He picked up, like, at least 50 or 60 of them. There's 85 exclusives, and he picked up, again, 50 or 60 of them. And he was mentioning how he was, like, looking all over the place for this one, and how he saw it for, like, 20, 30 bucks. And I'm thinking, oh, fuck, this is probably a rare game, isn't it? I've seen it a handful of times, but nowhere near as much as even the first one, like Choro Q1 / Penny Racers, whether it's the Japanese or North American version. That one's a lot more common than this. Though, still, I've seen a couple auctions of this. But, I saw one that was, like, cart only for $17, and I'm like, I better get that. Now, as for the game itself, I've played it a little bit, and honestly, I find it hard to form a solid opinion on this game. It's very happy Japanese-ish in its sense, and, the controls are fine, the graphics are nice and colorful and bright and detailed. But as for the game itself, it's like a kart racer. I haven't really, again, gone into too much. I've done a couple races, a fair amount of races, and I'm going to continue to do some more. Just kind of drove around, enjoyed the scenery and whatnot, but I didn't really get too competitive or that into it from what time I've spent with this game, and I'm not sure if I will. I mean, it's a 4-player racing game, and, it's got more than 3 tracks, so it doesn't suffer problems like so many other fucking racers of this generation. So, yeah, definitely still a cool, neat little game for sure, and, great to have. How about Kobe Bryant in NBA Courtside? Now, this game you may have heard of, because while some may brush it off as, oh, just another sports game, the thing is about this game is that, well, it was developed by Left Field Studios, the same people who also made Excite Bike 64, and this was published by Nintendo. Nintendo also published the sequel, NBA Courtside 2, featuring Kobe Bryant, because I guess Nintendo just had faith in, Left Field Productions and just this game overall. And it paid off, because this game actually ended up selling 1 million copies. Which, it's one of the million sellers on the N64. That's why I think you really see this game so damn often compared to, a lot of other sports games on the N64. Now, a lot of those are common too, but this, fucking everywhere. Now, how's the game itself? Well, the sequel is said to be, like, just an incredible, great game, definitely, like, the best basketball game on the system, and I imagine this isn't too far off. I've played it a decent amount, and yeah, I'd say I enjoyed it more than the other 2 basketball games I currently own for the N64, which would be NBA Live 99 and In the Zone 2000. I can say, just good job overall, and hey, I guess, it was advertised a lot, and, in fact, you can even see this game on the back of, like, some N64 boxed consoles, You see it along with, like, International Superstar Soccer, either 98 or 64, F1 World Grand Prix, and, of course, you see also the, not stuff you would normally see, like GoldenEye, Diddy Kong Racing, Mario 64, F-Zero X, Star Fox 64, things like that, because, hey, I guess this was just somewhat of a big game, because, like I said, it sold 1 million copies. I'll save that one for last. Here we have Milo's Astro Lanes. Yes, this is one of 3 bowling games on the N64. There's also, well, of course, there's also Brunswick Circuit Pro Bowling, this, and of course the infamous Super Bowling, but there's also, like, not that it's a 4th bowling game, but in Chameleon Twist 2, there's a, look at that, in Chameleon Twist 2, there's a bowling minigame, and in Suzume Tyson Puzzle Dama Token Maru Tamacho, on the back of the box, it shows a bowling minigame, so I'm inclined to think that there is one in that game. Now, one thing that I've said before about Super Bowling is that game, I believe I said this in my N64 retrospective, but I said the thing about that game is that it's almost kind of like if Mario had, like, his own, like, bowling game. Like how he does with all the other sports and shit. Like, if there was a dedicated Mario bowling game, it would be kind of like that. This is also kind of like that as well. Maybe even a little closer to home, because again, it's got that sort of cartoony esque vibe to it, but it also has things like items, you know, that you can mess around with. And of course, everything's space theme, aliens and stuff. You got some power-ups to like split your, bowling ball into like 3 ways, so it's 3 bowling balls, or you can make the bowling ball charge faster, or, have it like grow big so that way it's an almost guaranteed strike. This game was made by Player One, the developer Player One, who also made the infamously awful Blues Brothers 2000 on the N64, and the somewhat infamous Hercules the Legendary Journeys, also on the N64. Well, this game is probably better than those two. But from what I've played of it, it's just not as, fulfilling or as satisfying of an experience, to, like, just bowl. Like, it seems like without the items and whatnot, even getting regular, like, strikes and whatnot just seems kind of like a fucking crapshoot almost. I mean, granted, you can say that about anything in bowling related, but especially in this, it's just that there's almost this, like, no real balance between, not using items and using items. It's like, that's just the thing about this game. It just feels unbalanced and, not the most entertaining bowling game of its kind. But you know what? It's interesting to have. And again, you have to get it. Now, here's something really cool, something I'm sure you guys have heard of. This is Hybrid Heaven. Now, it's, of course, gotta get this, all 388 N64 games. But in the case of this one was interesting because, as you may know, this is an RPG. One of the very few RPGs on the system, and just another, like, testimony to how freaking dedicated Konami was to the N64 by putting out just a whole bunch of games, and even something like this, something that isn't even seen all that often on the N64. Now, it's not your traditional regular-ass RPG, nor is it even as long as your traditional regular-ass RPG, like it's only 15 hours. I've put 1 hour into this so far, and, well, its battle system and just gameplay overall, I think, is what I find interesting the most. Because when you're not doing battles, you're going around, you hold, I think, either R or Z to shoot. Like, you hold R or Z to get into a shooting position, and then you shoot your gun, whatnot. You shoot turrets or, like, switches and whatnot. The game takes place in, like, an underground base. You play some dude named Mr. Diaz, and occasionally you get into battles. There's, of course, a story mode, and if I can say anything about the story, well, I haven't really paid attention to it much, but the opening cutscenes and whatnot are actually just, like, mind-blowing to see, because it's like, you almost never see shit like this on the N64, with the way it's trying to be all cinematic, and it's just voice acting, and what it does. Again, it's just, Konami really did, try with the N64, and did a pretty good job overall. But then you get, of course, you get into battles, which, the battles, in a way, okay, so you select, you select attacks, almost like a turn-based RPG, but it's not turn-based combat. Whether you attack or your enemy attacks depends on how quickly you can, I guess, I don't know what activates your turns, like you're attacking. I think you have to press like A and B or A and B at the same time to bring the menu up to select a low punch or a low kick. But as long as you keep your distance from the enemy and then get ready to select attacks, while getting closer to the enemy, you can just keep on going, and the enemy will potentially never hurt you. I know what I'm saying might, be hard to understand, but if you play it, it's actually pretty interesting, and it works out decently well, because while I haven't played many RPGs, and I'm generally very picky with whatever RPGs I played, and I haven't had exactly the best impression of turn-based RPGs overall, this is not a turn-based one, again, like I said, this is kind of cool. It's kind of cool. It's nowhere near as, engaging as, of course, something like a Tales of game, though it's obviously not trying to be, but it's an interesting little side effect, and considering how I've played very little RPGs, and even fewer RPGs that aren't Mario related, or Pokemon, or even Tales of related, it's just crazy for me to play. And, I got it sooner than I would have, because I feel like this game is probably going to go up in price somewhat. It's really cheap, actually, for what it is, too, so, yeah. I got mine for $15. Who knows, maybe I'll sit down and play all 15 hours of the adventure at some point. But I'm impressed with what they've done so far. Okay, how long is this? Alright, yeah, we have time for the last two. So these last two were also Christmas gifts. Yes, it's fucking late February, and I still haven't talked about all the Christmas gifts I got and that I showed off in that video. But here's the last two. We have Sonic Lost World on the 3DS. Now, it took me a while to get this, because, of course, I'm gonna get every Sonic game, I'll accept any Sonic game, yada yada yada. And this one just kind of seemed, you know, why didn't I get this sooner? You know, this didn't seem like one that was like, oh, I could see missing that, because, you know, it's the 3DS version of yet another main series Sonic game. I'm not gonna go too much into my sort of like history with this version. You know, I'll save that for the 3DS retrospective, but I'll say this. Now, of course, when I had first played this years ago, I think I played it probably in early 2014, late 2013. I mean, I got, of course, the Wii U version in late 2013, but as for this version, well, impressions were not particularly good. If I hated how long some of the levels were, I hated how tedious some of they were, and, you know, in some cases I didn't end up beating levels because they were just kind of fucking stupid. And, well, fast forward to 5 years later, I guess 4, because I got this in 2017, and, you know, I beat it. In fact, I actually beat it yesterday. Yesterday of the day I'm filming this, February 22nd. Well, I still, you know, maintain a lot of those opinions, mainly because, you know, it's true, a lot of these levels do take very long to complete, and it also has a lot of stupid, tedious tasks, like the obvious, like, you know, Frozen Factory, Act 3. Also, the entirety of fucking Silent Forest is just, you know, long and annoying. I mean, and, you know, Sky Road Act 3, that's another fucking annoying level. Because there's just so much, like, stop and, you know, oh, here, frickin', you know, like, kill this many enemies, you know, to get going, to open up a portal to get going, but usually it's always on, like, a sphere, so you have to, like, search around and whatnot, and you have to, like, do all kinds of other, like, tedious tasks to proceed in the levels, and just things like, what the fuck, how is this supposed to be fast whatsoever? It's just, there's a lot of problems with the 3DS version's level design, and, you know, it's a shame, because, like, some people probably would never have played the Wii U version. You know, in fact, most people, because obviously a lot more people have the 3DS. So they would probably play this and just write off Sonic Lost World in general as a bad game. Now, of course, yes, Sonic Lost World has a lot of sort of controversy behind it, because what fucking Sonic game doesn't, and what fucking thing related to Sonic doesn't have controversy around it. But I can say I really liked the Wii U version, but as this, what the fuck just happened with this? Even if it's not as painful as it was when I experienced it back in 2013 and 2014 and whatnot, because again, I did beat it, it still has many problems with it. And of course, the big one, Sonic Forces on the PS4. Now, I got the PS4 version because I thought, you know, let's show a little more love to my PS4, you know? I mean, of course, the Switch and the PS4 are going to get more games in my collection very soon. But yeah, I decided to get this on PS4 instead of Switch, and has a little controller skin, which I'm not going to put on my PS4 controller, but, you know, it's there. Now, I'm not going to, again, talk too much about my history with this, not too much about it, but I will say that, like, you know, hopes were decently high for this. Of course, not as much as Sonic Mania, and in fact, it's because of that it pisses me the fuck off that Sonic Mania still doesn't have a physical release, even though this got one. You know, because even though I'm fucking certain that there's more hype for Mania, and just better critical response overall than there is for Sonic Forces. Now, I like the concept that this game has going for it. You know, the story, of course, has that sort of whole, you know, like, resistance, end of the world, doom and gloom, city taken over sort of deal. Kinda like, if you really think about it, kinda akin to Sonic SatAM and Sonic Underground, or, you know, a lot of the Sonic comics. It has that sort of ordeal where it's like, Eggman took over the fucking world and the city. Now we're gonna create this resistance and whatnot. And, of course, instead of being, you know, characters like Bunny Rabbit and Antoine and Sally and, you know, Rotor, it's of course all the ones we know: Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Team Chaotix, Rouge, Shadow, Silver, you know, and of course the the custom character, also known as Rookie. I'll get into that in a bit. And I like that concept, you know? I like seeing all these characters back, even though people will make the same shitty, oh, look at Sonic and all these shitty friends and stupid characters, because, of course, well, let's just say the older I get, the more and more I realize how controversial Sonic the Hedgehog really is. But the main problem I have with this game is that it's very half-assed and shallow and short from its just everything. The whole production values, the stages, the fucking plot, the cutscenes, all that stuff. It's like, it's very half-baked. They have something going, and like I said, I appreciate seeing all the characters back and whatnot, seeing that, you know, hey, Shadow and Silver aren't fucking dead, you know, like, dead to the series, I should say, not dead as in character-wise. You know, but again, everything just lasts so short. It's like, and because everything lasts so short and feels so half-assed, I feel it's very hard to actually keep up and, you know, sort of care. It's like, okay, classic Sonic's in here, but the game is so short, it's not giving me enough time to appreciate and care why classic Sonic is in here, or why, you know, fucking Infinite is doing what he's doing, or, you know, things like that. And it's cool, you know, because of course you got, like, the villains and whatnot, Metal Sonic, Chaos, you know, Zavok and Shadow, which of course are all fakes and whatnot, but even then, that just lasts fucking almost nowhere. You got some, like really quick stages and whatnot. It's just, it's hard to keep up and care about all this stuff, because, again, it's all so short. And even though it's not a terrible game, it's like, even, like, Sonic games and just games in general that are much worse than this, and much older in some cases, felt like they had a lot more production and just R&D put into it. This just felt like it was just sort of tossed out there, even though it had good ideas. Because it's like, sure, it's playable, and, you know, it was somewhat exhilarating and addicting to get, you know, the best times I can in these stages, even though that's really easy to do, because, like I said, they're really short stages. Music's not as memorable, though I will say the Zavok battle theme is very, very good. And, you know, again, I like the themes of a lot of these stages, but again, it's over before you know it. I might play through it one more time, like, as a different, you know, custom character, because they let you have, you know, different species of animals for that. And, you know, it's kind of interesting, the interactions the Rookie has with Infinite, you know, I kind of like that. Again, I'm not going to repeat myself, I said what I needed to say. There really should have been so much more work put into this to make it truly something really great, you know?